I'm very well aware that Rwanda, has been clearly identified as supporting the M23, that the M23 is creating, a huge refugee crisis, a displaced people's crisis in Eastern Congo, and destabilizing the whole region. And I would be very much in favor of cutting all aid. I think the West should cut all aid to Rwanda, because that was what happened 10 years ago when the M23 was getting out of control in Eastern Congo. And what happened is the donors, the Western donors, the IMF, the World Bank got together and cut aid to Rwanda. And suddenly the M23 problem that had been so massive seemed just faded away very, very quickly. And I would love to see exactly those steps being taken. But I see that is not happening. And I think the asylum deal is one of the reasons that's not happening, because the US, the UK, the EU, France, they're all got different agendas at the moment, different interests, and they're not agreeing. And it seems to me obvious that they should be talking about and agreeing to really severe sanctions on Rwanda for what it's doing in Eastern Congo. After the publication of Human Rights Watch's report, a 150-page report, I read it, I wrote about it.
Huge report.
On Rwanda's record on transnational repression, and the way in which Rwanda's agents fan out across the world to target dissidents and human rights activists and journalists. And, as you know, this is the subject of my book, Do Not Disturb. So, what the interesting thing about the Supreme Court ruling was that it had given a very succinct but quite critical assessment of Rwanda's human rights record. And I welcome that, because it was a very, it was quite short, but it was a kind of like, this is a country with human rights issues, a significant one, and it also mentioned this track record of killings of dissidents, exiles. It also talked about the politicization of the judiciary in Rwanda, and the fact that, the judiciary could be leant on and interfered with politically. And that's very important if you're considering, legal processes involving asylum seekers. So I think anyone who read that report would not be able to say this is a safe country. And one of the points I've been making when I give interviews to British media outlets is, you keep talking, is it safe for refugees? And for me, the question is Rwanda safe for Rwandans? We just saw in The Guardian, Victoire Ingabire, the former opposition leader, saying that she feels that she's in danger, that she is, because she gave an interview to The Guardian, because she also gave an interview to the BBC's Hard Talk programme, she feels that her life is in danger. She's picked up rumours, she's heard reports of what's being whispered, and she feels afraid. And you kind of think, setting aside the whole refugee issue, is Rwanda a safe place for Rwandan journalists, Rwandan opposition people, Rwandan activists, human rights activists, for Rwandan normal citizens? That, for me, that's the bigger question. So that's also another reason why the attitude to Kagame will be, we know what he does. We know he rigs elections. We know he kills people abroad. We know he sends agents. We know he sends death squads. But, that's nothing to do with us. We know that he jails opposition leaders and that he kills journalists and, they die in mysterious accidents that nobody really believes are accidents. But he's an ally, and nowadays the new Cold War in Africa is not between communism and capitalism. The new war that everyone worries about is the war between liberal Western sort of democracy and Islamic jihadism. So I think that's also a reason why you see a real failure to take action against Paul Kagame. One of the things I found ridiculous about the last week was that at a certain stage, Rwanda warned Britain, the British government, that it couldn't break international law And so the British government should not force it to do anything that meant it could break international law. Well, I mean, I'm sorry, but what Rwanda has been doing in Eastern Congo, supporting the M23, sending its soldiers in, and also not just supporting the M23 and sending them into Eastern Congo and arming them.
What about Rusesabagina's case?
Its own troops have been inside the country, right?
The Rusesabagina's case is kidnapping across borders, killing of Patrick Karegeya.
Sending killers to bump off, Patrick Karegeya and try and kill General Kayumba. I mean, these are violations of international law. So the idea that the Rwandan government should be lecturing and giving the British government lessons on, and saying, well, we couldn't be seen to violate international law. I mean, I was just listening to it, I was thinking, this is so ridiculous. But, again, one of the problems we have here is most journalists don't know anything about the Great Lakes. And so there was a marked failure, and neither do most members of Parliament. So there's a marked failure for anyone to bring up this rather pertinent point when Rwanda got on its high horse and said we couldn't break international law. I thought it was extraordinary.
Kayla, thank you. Welcome back to East Africa Daily. Thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you for inviting me.